Peace be with you, everybody. It's me, the Anti-Catholic, and today we're going to be talking about a thread that is over on Twitter by an account called Serafu, aka a Type Moon guy, who definitely is also a Catholic as well, I'm pretty sure. So, this thread is one that they compiled about all the things that they found about Saber's symbolism of these as well. So yeah, please go give Serafu a big follow, because yeah, he's definitely, or I don't know if he's a boy or girl, but they're definitely very, very on top of it when it comes to finding the Catholic symbolism in Fate, if that's something that interests you, like it interests me quite a bit. So we're basically just going to scroll through this and talk about some things that I really enjoyed about this, and also one of the main reasons why I like the Catholic representations inside of Fate as well, because it definitely is adjacent with the gospel, I would say, in terms of its message. Also, please remember to like and subscribe and share this content, especially if you have other Catholic friends who like anime as well. That would definitely help my channel grow up. I'm trying to get all the way up to 500 subscribers, I think is my next goal. I do have a 100 subscriber special actually in the works, so that might come out hopefully before the end of the year, 2024, this year, but we'll have to see. But anyway, back to Saber. So yes, the first thing right here that you'll notice is that there is a striking symbolism between Saber's chest piece and the Seraphim, aka the six-winged angels, and they are basically second to the throne of God, pretty much. Like, they're the ones who are constantly worshiping the throne of God, and very, very important in biblical lore, I guess you could say. And yes, Saber does have a seraphim representation on her chest piece, so that's basically representing protecting her and those kind of things. There's a lot of other good insights into different saints in here as well, but I'm not necessarily going to read text for text on here. But as he noted earlier, Avalon symbolizes the infused virtue of charity, which in learning to love herself and Shiro overcomes the world. Gilgamesh's pride and covenantness, and the flesh, Kyrie symbolizing perverse pleasure, and the devil, the corrupt grail. So yes, this sentence right here that they have put together is quite good, because that's basically the whole point of Shiro and Saber's relationship in the Fate route, and also I guess the other routes as well, is that they kind of redeem each other almost in a lot of ways. It's a very good, I would say, like, Christ-like type of relationship that they have, more so. And yes, it definitely follows the. This is one thing I really liked about Fate's messaging as well, is that they tie in, like, overcoming, like, stuff like, yeah, pride, covenantness, the flesh, and also, yeah, perversity as well. But it also ties into the suitor and the beloved. And this is something that is very, very important to Christian morality as well, is that if you basically have a beloved or someone who you are in love with, it's like, yes, you're going to put their needs before your own, and you're also going to, I guess you could say, like, put up your blockers for other kind of things that distract you from, like, that reality when it comes to things like perversion and also, like, greed, that kind of things. Basically the 7 deadly sins. If you're following virtues, if you're virtuously following your beloved, then it's definitely going to lead you more on the right path. And yeah, you can kind of put up your blinders, which is one thing that I liked about the writing in Fate. I'm circling it back to where I started this, I guess, thought thread. But yes, so in each of the routes, there's a main heroine. So in the Saber route, it's Saber, so he's thinking about Saber and no one else, really. Even though there's, like, times where it's like, okay, like, he's obviously still attracted to, like, Rin, or he's still attracted to, like, Ryder, or the other characters, basically. You still have those moments, that's literally perfectly natural within humanity. Like, you can't just be like, oh, I like that girl, even though like, I already have, like, someone who I'm in love with, basically. And then you can't just be like, oh my gosh, I'm so terrible for even, like, having those thoughts, or, like, reacting in a certain way. It's like you, well, whatever I'm saying. What I'm saying is that in each of the routes, Shiro, it does model like the virtuous thing of deciding on one girl to follow, basically, and that happens in each of the routes. So yeah, in Rin's route, he likes Saber, and he definitely builds like more of a friend relationship with her, and but yes, it's always like something that's not going to escalate beyond, because that's the kind of relationship that escalates with Rin instead in that route. Same thing with Sakura. Like, he basically chooses Sakura in the Heaven's Feel route, basically. Even despite, like, her character flaws and all of the danger and, like, sacrifices he has to make to do that, which is very, very virtuous, I would say. And the same thing with the Fate route. He kind of... Basically, he has to sacrifice quite a few things in order to keep pursuing Saber, even though Saber, like, kind of pushes him away as well in the very beginning part of the route, but by the end of it, it's like they realize that they are basically just meant for each other. And yes, and that they have to rely on each other for their own shortcomings, which is basically what the projection magic that Shiro does when they're fighting Hercules, and that's how they end up defeating Hercules in that route, which is pretty cool. Excalibur here, moving on to the second point, Excalibur is also a really cool example of the Catholic inspiration in this as well, because as you can see, you've got the Holy Spirit, the dove, and the candle flame. So it's a cross right here, obviously, but it also represents the Holy Spirit and like a dove descending as well. And the candle flame is also the light of Saber's sword, as you can see, with it basically just being a light to the heavens. It's pretty cool, pretty cool. Let's see, what else is of note here? So yeah, they're definitely linked to the Holy Spirit. But yes, the third tab right here is the ultramarine color, and this is basically just tying in that ultramarine, aka navy blue, as a lot of people call it, is a very like spiritual and spiritually firm kind of color, as you could say, which it is pretty cool. And I think it says like Marian colors: white, ultramarine, blue, yeah. So let's see. There is actually also this thing right here saying that the earliest attestation of King Arthur in history is said to he went into battle with the Virgin Mary on his shield, which is interesting as well. I'm going to pull this whole image up, but this is a surfboard. So it's not quite a shield, but it's basically a shield. But this is, I think, Summer Saber's shield or something, or surfboard, basically. But yes, that's the Virgin Mary on there. Pretty cool that they would put something on there. There's also Caliburn as well. And if you haven't read Le Morte d'Arthur, which I'm currently reading at the moment, I'm like, I think probably an eighth of the way through. I'm on like chapter 15 or something, so probably not even eighth of the way through. There's so many chapters in that book. But that's basically the Arturian legend that is the oldest and the most cohesive when it comes to the narrative and plot points and themes. And then it also is actually the basis of what Fate's lore is based off of. So everything when it comes to stuff like Caliburn and Excalibur, because in a lot of modern King Arthur stuff, there's only Excalibur and then there's a round table. And then he pulls the sword from the stone at some point. Those are the only three things that carry over. And maybe you get Lancelot and you get like actually none of the other knights. But Le Morte d'Arthur is the one that actually ties it in to all of the other knights. It has Mordred in there, Morgana, or Mordred in Fate as basically your alternate name as well. So you've got all the sorts of things like that in the lore. And then it also is the death of Arthur. So it's Arthur dying, Arthur going to Avalon, basically. It's very rooted in, I guess you could say, English folklore and also Catholicism as well. Le Morte d'Arthur actually does have several instances where bishops are mentioned several times. There's the crowning of Arthur, I think, happens pretty early on, and that's overseen by a bishop or something, I think. And there's also like some more mention. I think this is another thing that Serafu posted recently that I saw. But there's some saint or something and I don't necessarily know if there's like too much to ground them, but I think they did exist. But I think there's also mention of them saying that like Arthur's birthday was December 3rd or something like that, is I think what he said. So that's something I saw recently, so that's very interesting. But Le Morte d'Arthur basically is what Fate's based off of, and is cohesive, and it's Catholic. That's the main point, and why this all links together so well, is because Le Morte d'Arthur basically is very, very cohesive when it comes to all the lore, all the characters. You have every single knight represented there, all the ones that show up in Fate, and even more that are like from the time of what's his name, Uther Pendragon, instead of just Arthur Pendragon. So yes, you've got those kind of lore things as well. But yes, the death of Arthur is very, very important, and if you watch the movie Excalibur from the 1980s, that is also based on Le Morte d'Arthur. So I would definitely give Excalibur a good watch, because it's just the best way to experience Le Morte d'Arthur if you don't want to read through everything, because it is a difficult book to read through just because there's so many names, and it's written like a ballad well, not a ballad, it's written like what a bard would be telling a story of. So it's not necessarily like dialogue heavy, because the dialogue isn't necessarily very specific. It's more so just let's see, it's more so, yeah, like it's more so plot heavy. It's very plot heavy, I would say, and there's so many different chapters and stuff. But let's see, what else is here? The Caliburn, back to Caliburn. This also has a cross, and it's basically symbolizing the burden of the kingship that Saber has to carry. Shiro also returns Caliburn to her, so basically returning her initial purpose as well, so it's pretty cool. Avalon is very, very symbolic as well, because this is basically just the representation of heaven in Fate and in Arturian legend, and yes, it is very symbolic of a good saintly journey, I would say. So let's see, where else is a good point right here? Yeah, that's basically the end of the thread. But pretty much the whole point of the Fate route, and the whole point of it being tied into Catholicism, is that Shiro and Saber both, like, basically complement each other in the way that, like, a husband and wife would, basically. And it's a very Catholic idea of this kind of happening. And it's a very, I guess you would say, like, healthy and proper relationship that they kind of form over time. Even though you can make the counter argument that it isn't by any means like a perfect relationship as well, because as you can tell, like, there's still like human flaws in there as well, especially if you're reading like the original 2000s novel of Fate instead of just the Rialta Nua version. Because there is several times where such things go on. I will not necessarily mention exactly what they are, but if you know old Fate, you know. But even that, it's like it still plays into the whole theming of the story as well. Like, it does have a important part to the story as well, but it definitely is something that's not like a perfect scenario, I guess you could say, because obviously Saber and Shiro were never able to, like, actually marry in that capacity as well, as you could say. And there's also some other lore. I think it's mentioned also in Fate Zero with Gilgamesh, like, trying to insult Saber, saying, like, oh, you're not even a virgin anymore, or something like that. Which is something, I think, from her legend as well. Because if you don't know, in at least the Fate lore and the Arturian legend, it's like, yes, basically Saber has her own life that she still remembers, so like her soul has experienced lots of different things as well up to this point before even meeting Shiro. So it is quite interesting, I would say. But obviously they've died. Yeah, like a counter argument was also like Saber died, or like Saber didn't actually die, she went to Avalon pretty much, but I believe Guinevere died. Or however it's represented in Fate, because of the whole like gender swap kind of thing. It is very interesting. But yeah, I'm just rambling on at this point. There's plenty more threads that Seraphu posts as well. There's actually one about Ciel, I think from Tsukihime as well. He does, or he or she does lots of very, very in-depth kind of symbolism kind of things as well. But a sneak peek of that is that, yes, the summoning circles and that kind of stuff are based not on, like, the pentagram and that kind of stuff and, like, Satanistic type things as well in Fate. They're actually based on more Catholic roots. So, very cool that that's a thing to note, because I can definitely use that as a counter argument to people talking about, like, Fate being like, oh, they're using magic and that kind of stuff, right? I'm the kind of person who views magic as, in the case of a story like this, in the case of, like, the Fate universe, is more of just a neutral kind of thing, where it's, in all reality, it's actually more directed towards God than in our own world, which is crazy to think about, because it's all a matter of what things are and, like, what they're directed towards. So if the Fate lore actually backs up the fact that the Fate summoning circles and, like, all of that kind of stuff is more linked towards Catholicism more than, like, Satanism or something like that, then I definitely think it should be in a different category. But that will be a video for another day. I'm also doing, like, some good old piano albums. These are going to be released. I think I have one more to release before the end. At yes, please feel free to check out my other videos. I'm definitely trying to improve some of my video quality and branch out and actually upload at least once a month in terms of an anime and Catholicism video, or one of these little kind of deep dive kind of things. But yes, anyway, it's been me, the Anti-Catholic. Peace be with you.